Who is Sael, otherwise known as Satan, Abaddon, Enki, Lucifer, or a name he left far in the past, Malak-Taus? He is a well-known yet misunderstood deity. He is the architect of hell and has nothing to do with rebelling against his creator or the destruction of mankind like you may have heard of in other stories. Sael originated being born in a human body like us on Earth with a given name from his mother. His place of birth was Denmark. By the time he died, how any other physical person would die. He was a powerful shaman, but just above the lowest ranking levels you could be to be considered a deity. He searched seemingly everywhere for powerful souls like him until he found a couple like himself. Sael, known as Malak at the time, met Asmodeus, who was at the time known as Eros, and Baal, who was Baal, who died some years after him. At this time, there weren't many other stronger spirits that the three of them could find on Earth. After 175 years, Malak and Baal left Earth and discovered a new planet with stronger energy field that allowed them to interact with the objects there as spirits. Malak wanted to turn this Earth-like planet into a new Earth, but he was too weak at the time. So they went back to Earth for over 700 years. This is where Malak met his first wife Asherah. Together they had 6 sons in this order: Thoth, Set, Zagan, Nergal, Leviathan, and Amun-Ra. Asherah ended up sleeping around too much though, so Malak dumped her and got with Gaia, who is actually infertile. So for Sael's last child with Gaia, they used a method where Gaia takes a human or a dead god's spirit and combines it with her own as well as Malak's energy. Instead of getting just one child, a daughter which they named Inanna, they for some reason got a mysterious second child which they named Lu, also known as Azazel. After Inanna was born, Gaia left Earth and agreed to never go to hell for Inanna's safety. By that time, Malak had figured out how to use the energy of Hell's star to create the circles of hell, something that is very difficult to do and not every spirit can do. Baal stopped killing people because at this point in time he was basically a war machine, and he learned that his power came from causing happiness and joy, whereas Malak's came from absorbing life energy. At this point in time, Inanna was becoming very powerful as a goddess, stronger than Malak, almost catching up to her half-uncle, Baal. Lu was lagging behind because he couldn't figure out how his powers worked very well. He knew he was a shapeshifter, musical prodigy, master manipulator, and had very high intelligence. Lu, who was not very strong, figured out his powers came from the simplest thing in the universe. It was so obvious no one would have guessed it: planet energy. He also learned he could time travel, so after Malak opened up hell, maybe one spirit would arrive a month. The first spirit to arrive besides Baal and Malak's kids was Eros. He arrived maybe 10 minutes after Malak told him about it. Over the next 300 years, they started to make the planet into a livable area, which ended up being Circle 8, long before it was the large city that it is today. Lu, who preferred Earth, began to research humans and see how weak most of them were, and he thought he could make them stronger if he subjected them to Hell's energy field. It turns out, when a living human goes to Hell, their body gets shredded and only their energy is left behind. This is where Lu decided to talk to his dad about bringing every single human spirit to Hell. Malak said, "No, we're not letting a bunch of brute animals run around my creation." This is not because he thought humans were brute animals, but because the weaker humans, in spirit form when they die, turn into animals. It's been 1500 years since Malak came into existence, and this is where the rebellion starts. At this point in time, Malak had his government set up. He was at the top with Baal, his daughter, and his mysterious son. After that was Eros and Payman, along with ranking officer Satanakia. Lu decided he had had enough of his dad's rules, and started bringing spirits of dead humans to hell. People whose souls took the forms of fish, cows, antelope, kangaroos, and even mice. His dad threatened to kick him off the board at this time, so Lou removed himself and started getting assistance. He was joined by Floros, Barbados, and a few others. Lou tried to fight his father, Malak, but couldn't do much because his father was not only stronger but had a better weapon. Lou tried shooting Malak with his silver bow, but Malak just grabbed the arrows and broke them. Lou tried to stab his father, but Malak grabbed his son's sword, which was on the more flimsy side, and snapped it in half like a twig. Malak even tried using aeromancy, an air kind of divination magic, and it failed. Malak decided to kick Lou in the stomach and tell him about respect and how he went too far this time. All of them were banned from hell, and Malak disowned his youngest son, Lou. Payman questioned Malak's authority and chose to leave. Upon doing so, he was banned. Then Malak spoiled his daughter and made her the heir of the company. Inanna didn't exactly get with guys that appreciated her. Then, when they would do dumb things, she would kill them out of anger. Malak would then put her to sleep until the fires died down from each incident. When Inanna went to the underground palace to stop her half-cousin from stealing her first husband, she ended up getting stuck down there. Meanwhile, her half-cousin was getting intimate with her husband. Malak, now known as Enki, was very angry and made Inanna's two subordinates free her. Enki helped his daughter get better from the situation, but then she flipped out and killed her husband in anger, so he put her to sleep for another 100 years, and Inanna came back as Ishtar. Enki was known as Ea then, and was pleased to have his daughter back, but she ended up with another guy who left her for another woman, and the cycle repeated itself, until her name was Ashtaroth. And that's when the Christians began defaming the pagan gods. Malak was labeled Satan, Baal turned to Beelzebub, Ashtaroth turned to Astaroth. Satan was doing his thing for a while, contracting people for their life energy to stay alive, but he realized that he was getting less and less people every year. He knew that eventually he was going to run out of people and be left without a way to get stronger, and he would, as a spirit, deactivate, which is like death in the afterlife. Now their followers were forced to convert or be killed, causing a sharp decline in Satan's ability to stay alive. Satan hid Astaroth from the world to save her from mankind's destructive nature because of her significance to the future of Earth and mankind. Satan began to modernize and change the circles according to mankind's own progression. As Earth progresses, so does hell. Eventually, Circle 8 began to see buildings appear. The coastlines of Circle 2 started to see people, and so did the islands of Circle 7. Satan put people in charge of the circles. Originally, before they each had these names, Circle 8, Circle 7, and Circle 2, Asmodeus was in charge of 2. Satan's son Thoth was in charge of Circle 8, and 7 was owned by his son Amun. Eventually, Circle 8 became the center of Hell's economy, and Satan added more leaders. Asmodeus wanted to run his own business, so he opened a pub. This, after a while, became Circle 1, and Zapar took on the responsibilities of Circle 2. Satan, becoming less able to keep himself alive, with more people popping up on Earth, had a dilemma. He could hope his spoiled daughter, who had grown lazy over time, could run hell, or try to find someone capable of taming her, and have them both run it together. Lots of people called him, and I mean millions. No one would listen to him. He would show up to summonings, and people could not understand him or see him. While Satan was going about his business and Earth was going downhill as it normally is nowadays, an ex-high priest of Satan woke up Astaroth from her sleep by doing the marriage-binding ritual. Satan wondered how this somewhat low-leveled at the time mage woke her up from her stasis, so he kept a close eye on him. He was known as Kilser. Kilser was always asking for Satan's blessing, and when he met an open-minded spiritual Satanist, who we will call SB, who had not yet met Satan, who listened to him, He felt more intrigued to look into demons such as Asmodeus and Astaroth. He discovered Astaroth was also the goddess Inanna, and that her sacred days lie over his birthday. Eventually, he became a dedicated follower of Astaroth, and wanted to become her priest. So the day came when Kilser decided to do the priesthood ritual for his goddess. Destiny, however, had other plans, as Kilser fatefully performed the marriage binding ritual contract by what he at first assumed was an accident. 4 months later, a red star appeared in the sky, and Astaroth leaped from that star and into Kilser's body. At the time, he could barely see or perceive her because she was weaker from inactivity. 2 months later, Kilser began to hear Astaroth more, and on Cake Day he baked her a cake. That night he woke up in Circle 9 of Hell, followed by a city every single night. Kilser began to grow more skilled as a spiritualist and could hear the spirits in his head, almost as clearly as if having a conversation in person, if they were close enough. Kilser and Astaroth spent a year together in Hell, during the daylight hours, which on Earth was nighttime. Satan put Kilser through a few trials to be with his daughter Astaroth, which caused a decline in his mental health. Satan could not believe his daughter was with such a weak mortal at the time. Kilser and his friend began to receive attacks from Lu, the disowned son, who was banned from Hell, and it was now known as Azazel. But Kilser pulled through and handled things well enough that Satan granted Kilser the position of President of Hell. A fitting position since he is indeed married to Satan's daughter Astaroth. At some point during the tests, Astaroth revealed her real name from when she was reawakened as a spirit in the 21st century. It is now Elysium. Sael is seeing less ways to keep himself relevant in the current times. Less people are bothering to contact him, and he's seeing a decline in people giving him support. As his support continues to fall, it makes it harder to gain access to Hell. Currently, Hell is open to anyone with a spiritual power level of 121 or higher. That's when all your animal features are now gone and you appear as a full human. You can only go there if you're dead or possess the ability to astral project and, of course, find out through a spirit where Hell is located. Or you may even discover Hell on your own, even as mankind's belief falls from Satan's grasp. Hell will live on under new leadership and will always be accepting of those powerful and intelligent enough to find it among the vast and endless cosmos.